written production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.
Good morning. What's up?
Boom it out there, Kat.
I'm sorry?
Boom it out.
Boom it out there. Good morning, everyone. I call this exchange meeting to order and ask that you rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I thank you for being here with us today. I welcome you to the exchange. I'm Kat Fimmel, and I'm the president of the RCSC Board of Directors. This meeting is audio and video recorded by the RCSC management and staff. Please be advised there is no recording of this meeting by any individual. If you take a moment to take out your cell phones or your electronic devices and turn them to silent, that would be greatly appreciated. I would now like to introduce your board of directors, starting with Mr. Collins.
Good morning, everyone.
Mr. Nowakowski, Director Nowakowski.
Good morning.
Secretary Totten.
Hello.
Treasurer Fast.
Good morning.
Vice President McAdam.
Good morning.
Director Nichols.
Good morning.
Director Lenevsky.
Good morning.
Director Lair.
Good morning.
And myself, Kat Fimmel. I'd like to introduce your management staff, starting with Mr. Bill Cook, the General Manager.
Good morning, everybody.
Kevin McCurdy, the Director of Finance.
Good morning.
Mike Whiprud, the Director of Buildings and Infrastructure.
Morning.
Chris Herring, the Director of Operations.
Morning.
Brian Duthu, Director of Golf.
Morning.
Doesn't sound like he's here. Mike Diermeyer, Bowling. Jolynn Higgins, Communications and RCSC Marketing Coordinator. Polly Corsino, the Sun City Visitors Center and Marketing Manager.
Good morning.
Marcia Johnson, our Corporate Executive Coordinator.
Good morning.
Teresa Serino, the Director of Events and Entertainment, up in the booth. I'd also like to recognize Alan Kleinhans and Carla Young, the audiovisual engineers, and of course, our timekeeper, Tracy Bussebarger. And I thank all of them for helping us out today. Before we open the floor to member comments, there are some board directors who would like to make some comments this morning before we begin. I'll begin with Director Nowakowski.
Good morning. To dismay all of the ideas of why I had to resign or step down as president, Kathy fell and broke her arm. And so we're in week 3 of a 6 to 9 week rehab process, and I just became the caregiver. And as much as I like the RCSC, she takes priority. And so, it's what you have to do. Sometimes life steps in the way and things happen. So as a caregiver, unfortunately, there's not enough hours in the day for me to do both. And like I said, she takes priority. That was the reason I had to step down as president.
Director Collins.
Hello, thank you. I too have had medical issues that I've been dealing with, and I could not continue and give you guys the best of treatment that you would have deserved under my conditions. So therefore, I had also stepped down. But while I remember this, the Duffyland Dog Club is having a Valentine's potluck on February 14th at Talisman Hall at 5:30 p.m. Please bring a dish to pass, and please get that on the marquees if you would, Mr. Cook.
Thank you very much, gentlemen. You would like to make a comment? Certainly.
Here's the deal. I made a mistake, and when I make one, I promised you that I'd tell you. I spent the Christmas break, I call it the Christmas break, cleaning and catching up at home because I had spent much time campaigning. Instead, I should have memorized the bylaws. I realize this is your forum, but I have a request of all of you who are here, present today, those who are watching, anyone who reads The Independent, and anyone else. It's a simple request. I have an email box at corporate, jtotten@suncityarizona.org. Please send me 4 concerns that you would like to see this board work on this year. I'm speaking for me, but I believe I probably echo the rest of us. We have a lot on our plates, and we have to be realistic about what we can accomplish. But before we can do that, we need to know what you want. So I think I can probably tabulate and come up with the ideas that you all have. And if you'll just give me a minute, I can roll through a few. Best Friends Dog Club, the budget. Clubs, lack of volunteers, space issues. Communication, and if you're going to use that word, could you please be specific about what type of communication you're thinking of? Golf, RCSC itself, the maintenance of the parking lots, too many employees, not enough, minimum wage met, safety, security, technology, specific centers, fairway, lawn bowling greens, Grand, quilting room, Lakeview, removal of tennis courts to be replaced by pickleball, Mountain View, cost as shown in the PIF, gymnasium, performing arts center, softball, Viewpoint Lake, transparency. Again, please be specific about what you think, what you're talking about. Water, other. Thank you for your time.
Wow, we're incredibly busy, aren't we?
We got a lot to do.
Along that same vein, what I would like to recommend, ask that you give consideration to, is to having the annual members meeting in November. I mention that here only to give you an opportunity to comment here today if you choose to do so. And with that, I will open the floor.
Good morning. My name is Evelyn Larson, and my member number is 160992. I was happy when I heard that we were going to do an in-depth study, and I was further pleased when I found out it was coming from ASU. I've taught business classes at a community college, and I involve students in projects, and I know that this can be a win-win situation. I was delighted. I have an MBA, and my emphasis is in marketing, and I'd never claimed to be an expert in survey design or in data analysis, but to me, this survey appeared to be very poorly designed. And I was surprised. I was expecting far better. I took a lot of time. I took 3 days to complete that survey. I spent a lot of time and consideration in looking at it and thinking about what I felt was important. But most of those 3 days was spent battling the design of that tool. And to me, it appeared that they took a tool that was already done and kind of put us into that tool. And it just wasn't a very good fit for Sun City. I don't know why that wasn't addressed by the faculty person at ASU and why they didn't step in to create a better product for us. Here are some of my original thoughts about why I'm saying this was a bad tool. And I'll do the little nitpicky one first. Really, typos? They didn't fix typos? I mean, that's the one that is glaring to most people. But there's other things, too. I felt like there should have been a beta test. I mean, you do a beta test with a survey, right? You do a beta test. I don't know why some of these things were not addressed in that beta test. And what about a box instead of for NA, not applicable? There was no not applicable on there. So you were forced into an answer. Or you had to get an error message at the end of the page, and it sent you back, and eventually you had to figure out that that was the intentional design of the system, and it took a while to get that figured out. I'm sure it was confusing for a lot of folks. To me, when I look at this, I think you're going to get a lot of data, and I'm afraid some of it's going to be irrelevant and other data points that are going to be missed. And I'll give you an example. I'm a social bowler. I bowl 1 to 3 times a year, so I'm kind of not really part of that group, and maybe you don't care about that, and I get that. But what about somebody that bowls twice a month? You know, the minimum answer was 1 to 2 times a week. So you have people that might be regular, but not, but infrequent, regular but infrequent users. Cumulatively, that could add up to a lot of people. And is that not something that's important? What's an RCSC potluck? What's an RCSC or a Sun City food event? I don't know what those are. Sound like a good time. I don't know what they are. Could we get examples that tell us what those things are? I recognize my time's up. I'm going to beg for forgiveness here. I would have liked to have a general feedback box to cover something that's not addressed in a question. There was no general feedback box. I got to the end of the survey. I wanted to go back, reread my answers, make sure I said what I did. It doesn't loop around. You get to the end of that survey, and it's like you can submit. It doesn't take you back to the beginning. I used back buttons about 40 times to go back to the beginning to look at my answers. And then some text boxes were not really text boxes. It was a one-line thing. You had about 6 words in there, and if you wanted to read what you wrote, I ended up putting in a fake word to bring up the next 6 words, take that out, put in another one. It's like, why couldn't we get a regular text box? To me, that's just poor design. And if I hit the end of that sentence, it took me back to the beginning. So it was extremely frustrating. And I was doing it actually on a cruise ship on my iPad. And my friend who doesn't live in Sun City said, I would have given that up a long time ago. And it's like, yeah, I know. So how many people just quit? Now, as a business faculty person at ASU, they should be aware that when money is exchanged, that's a business transaction, right? And when you exchange money, you expect something for that. I'm not sure we're going to get valuable information, and are we going to get the product that we're looking for? I know that there is a big part left to be done by them. I know there's going to be, you know, the data analysis is huge, focus groups, national survey, but all of those things are predicated upon the survey that was done that doesn't look like it's very good data. So, and honestly, I'm just extremely disappointed. I know that in the exchange, you asked for people to come up and to give solutions along with it. And you know, this decision was made. I think it was made with the best of intentions. I do not believe it is the RCSC board's fault that this came out the way it is. I don't think the blame game is helpful here. But, and again, I thought it was a great idea. I just don't know how to solve this issue. So, and honestly, I think somebody at ASU should be very embarrassed.
Thank you.
So.
Thank you.
Morning. My name is Tony Wilkie, 105642. I was here last month to talk about golf and some issues with it. I believe myself and at least one other person talked about the unfairness of the lottery system, and it also appeared in the Independent. I also saw this week or last week that Brian has come up with a solution, and I will read the first paragraph. Beginning in March, the Golf Division will be running a trial as approved by the golf meeting, attempting to reduce the number of reservations to get a better tee time through the lottery system, and to measure the bump rate. Now, I reviewed the video from last month, and I believe that what was being brought up was that the small groups are getting an unfair advantage of getting tee times before everybody else. Not so much the bump rate. I know that my group of 20 has had 2 bumps in 2 months. We can live with that. It's a pain to have to try and fix it, but we can live with that. When you look at the small groups, and I followed Brian's advice, hit the +2, +3, it looked like almost every day there was 4 small groups, that's 120 people minimum, who are getting 30 days versus our 5. That adds up as a minimum of $1,200 a month. Is that what the issue is? That we're picking up an extra $1,200? The system of giving these small groups advance booking, I believe happened because when they had the poker chips, people were going down to the pro shops, getting their draw, and then trading to get the best times for their groups to be able to play together. And I believe that's when it changed, because they didn't want members controlling when they got tee times. When COVID hit, it transferred to the lottery. The lottery computer equipment apparently can't handle the number of people that have big groups or bigger groups of over 30. We also have the situation where the last printed number I saw was 136 non-resident passes. That's $300,000 a year. I know that's a lot of money. But is it these people, the non-members, along with the people who are getting advance booking, that is creating the problem of not being able to get tee times? There are several issues with the IT. When I make a mistake and I try to go back to change the lottery, I get an answer that says, I can't make the change until you put in the team captain. There is no such thing. I've asked for this to be changed for well over a year. The solution that has been given to me by both Brian and Chris was just erase the whole thing you've done and start over. That is BS. It's not for me to waste my time redoing what I've already done. When I have to book rounds or change a name, It shows up on my computer. It gives me a confirmation. We get to the pro shop. No change has been made on their computer. That means they have to go out, find somebody like myself, go back in, change things. If you're bumped and you try to make tee times, you can only do 2 groups. Then you're locked out. So then I end up having to go sign in as my wife, get her 2 tee times to get all 20 people in. She's not the one playing, but yes, I found a solution. When I try to print the book times, I get the first page, 10 lines. If you have an 11th, you can't see it. If you have a 12th, you can't see it. You can't print it. All you're allowed to do is print 10 lines. When it rains, and I try to see if we're getting cart path only, it would be nice if on the site you would say cart path only today. That way we don't have to call the courses, take up their time answering the phone saying, yep, it's cart path only today. I probably have more to say, but I know I've already gone over my time. Thank you.
Thank you.
Margaret Ellingson, my number is 9953. I have macular degeneration and I can't see very well, so I'm asking my caregiver to give my statement.
Hi. The plans for Mount View that the 2021 board voted on were based on input from a town hall meeting in 2016, which was 7 years ago. The world in which we live in is ever-changing, and a lot has changed in the past few years. The lawn bowling green at Mount View was revamped in 2012 for a cost of $668,830. The money that was spent on the lawn bowling green was to give it a new and improved structure and appearance. Only 9 years later, the board voted to demolish a playing surface that cost $250,000. In the last 2 board meetings of June 2021, the board voted in favor of the proposed plans for Phase 3, which would mean demolishing the existing lawn bowling green and rebuilding it to the south. There was no common sense used in that decision. The pickleball courts at Mount View were completed in 2014 for a cost of $288,579. RCSC was used over $250,000 for that project. The courts had only been used for 7 years when the board voted in June of 2021 to bulldoze those courts down and get rid of them. The voting on this matter was hastily done with only 2 readings. Pickleball is the fastest growing sport in America and expanded in every community by leaps and bounds. It even has pro teams and is on ESPN on TV now. The court service, lighting, fencing, and windscreens at Mount View are in perfectly good shape. Does it make sense to get rid of the 7 existing courts that are in good working order when instead we should be adding additional courts at Mount View? The footprint at Mount View has enough room to allow for a total of 25 pickleball courts, while Lakeview is capped out at a maximum of 13. As directors and officers of the RCSC board, you have a fiduciary relationship with the members of Sun City. This relationship imposes obligations of trust and confidence in favor of the members. It requires you to act in good faith and recognize the responsibilities you have to represent the best interests of the members. It means that you must exercise due care and diligence when acting for the community. The entire Mountain View project needs to be reassessed, reanalyzed, and put out for a vote to the entire residents of Sun City. We need a dramatic change from allowing a small number of board members and the general manager from making huge decisions about how our money will be spent. Give us back our voice, give us back our vote, and let us be a community that is self-governed as it originally was intended to be. Thank you. And under 3 minutes.
Thank you.
My name is Dennis Christ, 124779. I'd like to talk a little bit about my feelings on bylaw changes that were proposed a year ago, also about the Mountain View project, and about subsidies for golfers. Thank you for passing the bylaw change to allow petition gathering on the RCS property. That was a good start. Please continue to make changes to allow more participation from the membership and make it easier for the membership to challenge a board decision. In regard to the Mountain View project, the three-phase project in which phase 1 has been approved is ill-conceived. Why start a questionable project not knowing if future boards will approve of the original design of phases 2 or 3 or their cost? As far as the facilities that are being proposed for that site, basketball, I played basketball, and the Villanueva Rec Center has Sun Basketball Club is playing there. And I went there, there's only 16 to 20 people there. And most of those were not Sun City residents. And they only play twice a week for an hour and a half each. That is not enough usage to justify a dedicated gymnasium. I question whether it's wise to place a one-of facility at the extreme south end of Sun City, such as the gym, theater, resort pool, sport pool, as they already have Sun Bowl and the softball field down there. It takes 10 to 15 minutes for someone on the north end to travel all the way down there. I question whether or not you build these facilities, whether or not those people will come down to the south end. Pickleball courts are heavily used and should stay there. Don't tear down, as the previous member said, don't tear them down, keep on building, because it's a very good sport and it's going to continue to grow. The previous board offered to build courts at Lakeview without even knowing the cost. And then phase 3, they offered an indoor conditioned facility, was promised, without considering whether or not the Marinette facility could be retrofitted with enclosed walls and air conditioning. It makes no sense to start a project without complete funding and known costs up front. 3 board members who approved it are no longer serving. I recommend that the board start over with the more common sense options, including leaving the existing pool and adding pickleball courts, of course. A study done last year and presented by Director Lair showed that the pickleball facility was only used 34% of the time. I challenged the pickleball club and the RCSC to work together to schedule playing time and placing players in groups with similar skills, which would be easy to do and allow for more competitive play. Simply building more courts because everybody wants to play between 8 a.m. and 10 a.m. or whenever they show up, it should not necessarily be the philosophy of the RCSC or any club. The softball club schedules play throughout the day, so should the pickleball club. With 800 players and 25 courts, everyone could play 3 times per week for 2 hours, as recommended by USAPA, the Pickleball Association, between 8 a.m. and 4 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And one more thing, per the 2022 management reports and financial reports, the average cost per round for non-residents pass holders was $21.21, which includes a cart. If you deduct the cost of the cart of $15, that means these non-residents are paying $6.21 per round. Is this fair and that a non-resident shall have the privileges of prime tee times and play for such a little amount? Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning, board and management. My name is Sarah Davis, and my rec number is, if I can get this undone, 109119. I'm here because at this stage in my life, which I think is supposed to be stage 2, but it might be stage 3, I wear many hats. But today I'm here for 2 of those hats. First of all, I would like to thank the board for overseeing and successfully providing residents of Sun City amenities that make it a great place to actively retire. This is my second time to live in Sun City. The first time, some life events, had my husband and I move, and then we came back, and I've been here 13 years. I love Sun City. I believe in Sun City. One of my hats that I wear, I am constantly interacting with people, and I sell Sun City. And I think it's a wonderful place to be. I know you hear probably a lot of negative feedback or grievances being aired, but not at this time. I want to thank you for what you do for our community. The second hat I wear, I'm going to reintroduce myself as Sarah Davis, the 2023 commander of the Sun City Posse. I've had the opportunity to meet with your management, Bill Cook and Chris Herring, and I want to thank both of you for the time that you gave to me and my executive officer so that we could be at the table and discuss some things that would help the community. As a representative of the posse and speaking for them, we want to be a partner with all the entities in Sun City that makes it a great place to be. And we want to do our part within the legal confines of what we do and honor our respective insurance companies of what they deem allowable for all of us. As everyone knows, we're not law enforcement, we're not security. We are the eyes and ears for MCSO, and we support suspicious activity as any of you would do. But we are community service, and that's what we want to put forth. Therefore, we are resuming our presence at the Sun Bowl concerts. We are scheduling our patrol drive-bys of RCSC parking lots, pro shops, and snack shops. And this will continue as long as we have the staff to do it. You know, we're all volunteers, and therefore there's snowbirds within us. And sometimes we get kind of thin on who's driving our patrol cars and who can be out there in the community. But what we can do and have the people to do it with, we're going to do our best to serve this community. We're proud to volunteer service to this community, and we're also your friends and your neighbors. Thank you for the opportunity to be able to speak out, and check us out. Come and join us if you have a few hours a month that you want to give back to this community. Thank you.
President Fimmel. Good morning. President Fimmel.
Madam President? Yes?
Madam President, sorry. If I could just make a comment as well, and Sarah, if I could thank you and the posse for reestablishing the relationship. It was a great initial meeting that we had. We're going to continue with our quarterly meetings with MCSO and us and the posse. Thank you very much for continuing your support at Sun Bowl and at our facilities. We look forward to it and look forward to a great relationship. So thank you very much.
All right, good morning. Dan Haberman, 135157. And as most of you know, I'm the president of the Sun City Pickleball Club. I've recently, and over time, I've had conversations with just about all these board members, with management. When I have those conversations, I am told that I've got one of the fastest, biggest growing clubs in Sun City. I'm told that pickleball is one of the fastest growing sports, and I'm told that we need more courts in Sun City. I've been the club president now for 14 months, and I got to tell you, I'm about as confused as I've ever been as to if we're going to get courts in Sun City. 11 months ago, I had a membership meeting. We told our members that we were getting courts built at the Lakeview. That process has been painfully slow. We've yet to really see any decent plans or blueprints or anything about those courts. I guess I'm not even sure now if that project's going to happen. I get asked daily, in fact, I've been asked twice this morning in this venue, Dan, when are we getting more pickleball courts built? right now, about all I can do is shrug my shoulders and shake my head and go, I don't know. So to the board, to management, I've got a kind of a simple question. Do you have a plan to build more pickleball courts in Sun City?
Yes,
Director Laird?
Director Laird.
Okay. Well, as far as I know, we did meet with the I've been meeting with you for a while, you and the board. And what happened was I was looking for a place that we could grow pickleball, not interfering with Mountain View. The Mountain View plan was moving forward, pickleball's going to be there. This was in addition. But I wanted to make sure that the membership, your membership, was behind it 100% before I brought it to the board. At that meeting, it was discussed. Everybody was super excited about it. I brought it forward to the board. The board approved to spend money to get the architectural drawings and the landscaping and blah, 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 all the stuff that goes on behind the scenes. That's been done. I believe, Mr. Cook, we have a detailed plan. We've expanded the footprint. I believe we have a detailed plan. I'm not sure where we are with that plan right now, but I thought we were moving forward.
So, Madam President, Director Laird, so yes, we do have a plan. But remember, we were only funded up to $50,000 to get us started. I know Mike and his team has done a lot of work with respect to that. I think we're at a point where we've got the topographical engineering design. I think that was the last piece of the puzzle, but I believe you've seen the 13-court design with, the seating area within and the seating area without. And so the next steps are to take this and get it approved by Maricopa County. But at this point, that's as far as we can go. And again, I can only go as far as the board allows. So the next PIF presentation that we have, we will make a recommendation as to how much that's going to cost, whatever that estimate may be. But I know we've put hundreds of hours, into this, so it's not like it's, sitting, doing nothing with respect to that. And our goal is to make sure that once we break ground at Mountain View, that we have, courts to replace those that, are torn down at Mountain View. So, Mike, I don't know if you have anything else to add, but I think I covered it, right?
Okay, can I just follow up question? So what you're saying then is the delay at this point really is waiting for a motion from the board to move forward with a...
So we only have funding up to $50,000, and I believe that we've spent that for the most part, or timing?
It's an ongoing process. We're in the middle of it. We haven't spent all the $50,000. To get there, we're going to need a little bit more, quite frankly, because when we picked that figure back when, we guessed that would be enough for architectural design. It's close, but not quite right. We're going to have a good set of preliminary drawings within the next couple of weeks. I know I've shared with Mr. Haberman the potential lighting scenarios we wanted to install. So we are sharing information. I don't have a set ready to share, but it's coming, and we will ask operations, Mr. Herring, and the club to be part of a page-by-page drawing review. And then we need to decide whether we're going to submit it to the county or not. And at that point in time, we'd be well poised to go out and get bids.
Madam President?
Yes, Director Collins.
I have a question for management. Over a year ago, we approved softball with a PIF budget. We have seen nothing on that project. And now we have this project that is, it seems like trying to move ahead of them, and they have been approved, and the PIF is there for them, and we're not doing anything with that. Do we have drawings for softball?
Absolutely. We absolutely do. We've shared them with Ron Koppas and the softball team very recently.
So
we're happy to share them with you too, sir.
When are we going to break ground?
Haven't bid it out.
Why not?
Because the drawing set is still evolving. We got comments back from Mr. Koppas, for instance, and we're going back to the architect to make some design modifications per the softball club's request.
So the drawings aren't done yet?
They're not done yet. I didn't say they were done.
I mean, it's been 12, 13 months, and they can't even finish a drawing for a softball clubhouse.
So if I
let alone pickleball and Mountain View and everything else. I mean, something's not right
Point
here.
of order.
Something's broken.
Point of order. I believe we were discussing pickleball. Can we get back
Thank
to
you, Madam President.
Okay, so just to be clear, we are moving forward with courts at the Lakeview.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay. I haven't taken up the 2 minutes personally here. I just do want to mention that in the meantime, the courts at the Mountain View are in bad shape. We got members that refuse to even play there. I'm not suggesting that they get totally redone or resurfaced, but they could sure use a Band-Aid. There are cracks, there are chips. Those courts could certainly just use some sort of upkeep and maintenance because they appear to have been neglected. So that would be really nice if those courts could at least be somewhat kept nice until we move forward. So thank you.
Director and Secretary Totten.
Jean, whatever. 2 questions for management. What is your proposed timeline for pickleball? Do you have one?
Madam President, Director Totten, yes, we do. And when I give my updates, both at the management report level as well as the, the state of the fitness centers or the centers, my centers update, I give dates with respect to where we stand. We've always had the vision to make sure that we have courts available once we break ground at Mountain View. So that's our plan at this point. But again, it's not an approved PIF budget, so we are limited by what we can spend. We may come back to try and get a little bit more for detailed design, but at this point we are, we're following a schedule that, along with all of the other projects that we're working. So we're trying to accommodate as many of the clubs and the activities as we possibly can, while we're also trying to repair, a 33-acre lake for $8 million. That's a huge project as well. We have Mountain View going on. We have, remember this Lakeview pickleball was an unbudgeted item, so it's an additional time expense that we, did not budget for last year. So, there's been a lot of time and effort with respect to that. So, we can either continue to try and accommodate as much as we can with the staff that we have, or we can not take on as many projects, which that's not a path that I want to take. But you have to be patient when you have this many projects. Mike has 9 people in his staff, and they're not all associated with running projects. Now, we just hired a new project manager, and I'm hoping that helps. But we are working on these. We don't sit around and do nothing with respect to these projects. Mike wants to get them done just as badly as the rest of you do. So we just completed the Lakeview building for golf and grounds. And so, that obviously is taking some time, giving some cycles back to Mike. But I just ask that you be patient with us with respect to all of these projects that are going on.
General Manager Cook, I think the membership has been patient, and what you have just reiterated are simply the directions and the job descriptions of your responsibilities. Do you have a timeline for each project? Are we, can you put that on the website so the members can see it?
We do. We put it in the management report, and then we publish my monthly update for the centers, my centers update, and that has timelines in it. I present it at, well, it used to be at this meeting, but I presented the last one at the board meeting, and that has timelines in it.
Okay, I guess perhaps
And that's published. That's
my
published.
idea of a timeline might be different than what you present, so I'll have to do some investigative work on my part.
I mean, we put out completion dates. I don't think it makes sense to put in every interim
I do.
Item and
I
go
do.
through that.
I would like to see that.
Madam President. Madam President.
Yes.
Yes, Mr. Cook. I'm sitting here and what I'm hearing is you need a PIF budget for the pickleball. But in the same thing, we have softball that's had a PIF budget for over a year and nothing's being done. So giving a PIF budget does not mean anything is going to be done any quicker.
That's unfair to say nothing is being done. I mean, there's a lot being done. I mean, we have drawings. We knew we had some issues with respect to security out there. I've talked to Mr. Kopis, the president of the club, a couple weeks ago, and he seemed, I think we said we were going to be done with the facility by what, I can't remember, fourth quarter this year is kind of what our goal was. So that's where we're at. Is we're trying to get a fourth quarter.
A false hope to the pickleball people would say, if we give you a PIF budget, you're going to get your thing built. Because they've been waiting with a budget, and it isn't done yet. So it doesn't necessarily mean things are going to speed up.
It takes time to get these projects done.
Vice President.
And if we didn't have additional time commitments put on us, we'd have additional cycles. But we try and accommodate, as many board requests as we can. And we try and accommodate as many club requests as we can as well. And in addition, last year we had 4,000 work orders to complete. We have 1 million square feet under roof here with 8 golf courses, 2 bowling alleys, and every time something breaks down, we're fixing it. So that's 4,000 work orders. So we have to manage our time, and the great thing is that softball has, what I think is one of the premier softball fields with, the infield that we just put out there. And so that's, we pride ourselves with that field. So, the next step is we plan on getting them the rest of what was in the PIF by the end of this year.
I can understand that, but I feel the same way the people here do. I'm sorry.
Yeah, so I think that I want to come back to the pickleball question because, we call this an exchange, and the idea is that we hear from you, you hear from us. And you heard a single response from a board member to the question about, the confusion, what about, is Lakeview, are we moving forward with this or not? And I would just like to say, I think one of the real strong functions of a meeting like this is that we do get to hear from you. And one of the things that we are hearing loudly and clearly is that many people in the community are very concerned about the process that led to the Mountain View plan that we have on the table right now. It seemed very rushed, it seemed very hurried, it seemed very unsupported by data. So basically, I mean, you know what we've said in the past is that you look at the data, there were, depending on which report you look at in January of this year, either 13 or 34 people that signed in to play basketball. And there were 10,000 people that signed in to play pickleball. So, and lawn bowling as well. We're hearing that. We hear you saying that, and we hear you saying we should probably go back and look at the process that was used to come up with the Mountain View project and where we are right now. And I think as a board, we're hearing that and we're realizing we need to address that topic. We're anxious to hear from you. We want to know about it. We are willing to go back and review prior decisions of the board. And I just want you to know that's where we are, and this board has only been seated for 6 weeks, and we hope that we will be able to report that we have done some more serious investigation about that and consider whether the current plans for Mountain View are actually the best use of the resources we have, both in terms of finances and in terms of real estate.
I want to take 1 second to comment to that. And when that is done, it will be done in conjunction with the members. Director Linefsky.
Madam President, I've listened now for about an hour on comments that have been made about the general manager and the lack of progress. So let's review a few things. Before we can begin a lot of these projects, you have to go through the zoning process and the permit process of Maricopa County. Bill, do you control the Maricopa County bill process of permits?
Director Linefsky, no, we do not.
Second of all, I've heard a whole lot about how you are delaying stuff. When something is beginning on the PIP, we'll say in 2022, does that mean it's finished in 2022?
No, it does not. It just means that turns on the funding for that project.
And we did last year, basically we did a new storage facility for millions of dollars of equipment. Is that correct?
That's correct. For Lakeview, I'm sorry, thank you. Lakes East West, yes, we did.
We're also doing an $8 million, at least $8 million project on the lake because we're being mandated to fix the water. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay. And you also, as far as Mountain View, as general manager, do you have to follow the directions of the board?
Yes, yes, I do.
Do you feel that you're under the directions of the board to proceed with Mountain View because of last year's votes?
That is correct.
If that changes, you would change your position, correct?
That's correct. If the board decides to change their position on Mountain View, we absolutely would support that. I don't make the decisions on what happens. I certainly will provide input and ask my staff to make sure that operationally any decisions that the board makes make sense, but I don't make the decisions with respect to, actually doing Mountain View or what happens down at Mountain View. That's a board decision that we would support.
And the board made it last year, correct?
That's correct.
Thank you.
Excuse me. This is a member meeting, and I would like the members to have an opportunity to comment. Harry's waited long enough, please.
On that positive note, good morning, everybody. My name is Harry Emerson, member number 130678. I'm here to talk about the small group booking issue from the golf perspective. Now, I'm going to take a bit of a pro stance on this, which I'm sure won't generate the applause that we've seen so far today, but ask the board to recast the issue into somewhat more of a larger problem statement. When people talk about this, a number of my golfing buddies and groups, there are 4 problems that usually get rolled in as people state their views / talk to their friends. Small group bookings is one that comes up. Non-resident rates and access. Off-campus tournaments, the one once a week, one north and south of Grand. And the RCSC cardholder rates. What I propose is that you cannot really address one of those components without affecting the other 3. If you're going to say, throw all the bums out that come up here from off-campus tournaments, that's great, but you have to then manage to the top-line revenue. So then if you go down that road, you have to then replace that revenue of throwing those people out. Full disclosure, I play in one group per week in this category on Saturdays. The rest of the week, I compete for tee times using a lottery just like everyone else that's speaking up here. I'm the president of the Willow Creek Willowbrook Greens Committee and sit on Golf Advisory. To address the small group booking issue at hand, the numbers on the calendar can be analyzed in a number of ways. I'll give you one and have information on the others. For example, looking at today, there's 5 small group bookings, 1 off-post tournament for a total of 6 events. You look at Friday, Mondays and Fridays are the crunch points. There's 1 more because there's an SC MGA event. If you run that across number of hours available from 9 to 12, compared to what's available totally across 5 courses for 5 hours or 4 hours a day, that gives you 75% of the tee times available. Now, for those that would assume we toss out the small group booking crew, that the issues go away from tee times, that's not, in fact, I think, the case. Those groups will figure out a way to probably clog up the system either worse than you think they are now. The real problem statement in my mind is that given 353,000 rounds annually a year here, demand simply outstrips the supply of golf course available tee times, particularly January through March. I'd recommend to the board that they recast the issue and take the following actions. Provide additional information and techniques to all members via websites and video. I know Brian's already working about this. Conduct a detailed revenue analysis across all inputs to make sure that the stream contributes to the top line. Do a detailed analysis of the lottery to address some of the specific issues, and then take those actions necessary to increase supply or reduce demand. To increase supply, you got one choice: buy more golf courses. RCSC passed on Union Hills 6, 7, 8 years ago. Palm Brook has been up for sale a couple of times since we've been here, and the decision is made not to purchase those. How do you decrease demand? You raise the rates across the board in really all of the categories that I cited. When you mention that to my golfing buddies, would you rather get tee times a little bit quicker and pay $2,500 instead of $1,550? You can imagine the response I get to that. So I'm out of time. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Mr. Emerson, I want to thank you for your patience.
I thank all of you for your patience.
I'm Carol Harrington, 113970. I wasn't going to talk about pickleball, but I'm going to now. Wasn't my understanding from the president that the main times they want are 8 to 10? Was that my understanding? Because it's really interesting. The only pickleball courts I drive by are the ones at Marionette. And for the large majority of the day that I drive by, they're empty because they want to play like in the morning. Well, if we use that same analogy for golf, golfers would be screaming, build more courses or buy Palm Brook or whatever. It just seems very interesting to me that their solution is to build more courts. I think they need to learn to play like golfers do anytime during the day. To me, it's simple. Second thing, I live on the 16th hole of Willow Creek, right at the tee box. So I see lots of interesting behaviors from what I assume are non-Sun City residents. If you're in that 20 to 40 group and you are wild with your cart and you're screaming the F-bomb, it's like, you know, I don't think they live here. But one of the concerns that I have, being very specific, is, you know, there are really no consequences for bad behavior. They're supposed to bring the carts in by dusk, but those guys are out there when it's pitch black. And they take their cart back. What happens? Does anything happen, Brian?
If you're asking if we have knowledge of a non-resident golfer that's caused damage to a golf cart, or?
I'm asking about, like, for example, late return. Do they get a check mark by their name? I won't let you answer during my time, but hang on one second.
The short answer is we will ban people from the course if they've caused issues on the golf course.
Okay, I'd like to see data of the number of people banned, because I don't think it's happened very often. But anyway, you asked for transparency and communication. I'll be very, very specific. Where were you, Brian Duthu, last Tuesday afternoon when you were scheduled to meet with the Willow Creek Ladies Golf Club? You confirmed Monday morning that you could still be there, but then Tuesday morning we get an email that said there was something on my calendar. I'd like to know what that something was.
Obviously, the email, maybe I worded it incorrectly, but the email says that there was an item on my schedule that wasn't on my calendar, because the lawn bowling committee, which I have to attend, had moved up their meeting from the normal Tuesday, and Director Lair can confirm this because she ran into the same issue. They moved their meeting up because they had a tournament the week of their normal meeting. So I haven't learned how to be in two places at once.
Right, but it's sort of like what Director Collins said. So pickleball takes precedence over softball, so lawn bowling took precedence over a golf meeting. I mean, I understand that you can't be in two places at once, but it just sometimes feels like golf, we just sort of nod. Last thing, real quick. I think if we're ever going to solve some of the problems with our golf courses, we need paid marshals. We need to find some way in the budget to help take care of that, because there is a lot of abuse to our golf courses that I think could be solved by paid marshals. Thank you for your time. Thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
If I could just protect Brian. I mean, committees absolutely take precedent. We have to, we are just one people here, and we have to prioritize. And if a committee demands our time over an impromptu meeting, then we have to go to the committee. So unfortunately, that is going to happen.
Mark Littow, 22422. I'm here today to again speak about the small group bookings and the effect on the lottery, especially Monday and Wednesdays. The Golf Advisory Committee recently approved using a straight sheet to provide for more mid to late morning tee times. This is a Band-Aid approach to the problem. There are currently as many as 4 courses with straight sheets already, so this will have little effect on the problem. This is a temporary fix at best, and split sheets will be more appropriate in a few months with warmer weather. Also, the main topic of limiting small group pre-booking was not addressed, apparently. There also was an SCRC email issued with lottery tips for success for using a lottery. It stated that the golf calendar is your friend. Yet the current calendar doesn't even show the blocks of tee times that are pre-booked by the small groups or unavailable split sheet times. That's not a very good friend. The golf calendar should be linked to the lottery and should show all unavailable pre-booked or split sheet blocks of tee times for the lottery to work adequately. The real issue that needs to be addressed is inadequate administration and regulation of the small groups in the board policy, such as no restrictions on group size, no restrictions on number of groups, no restrictions on the number of non-residents in groups, no apparent restrictions of allocation of prime tee times to these groups, despite the director of golf having authority to determine the schedule. In addition to monopolizing prime tee times, the small group pre-booking policy currently divides up the prime tee times into small segments at
some courses with more than one group playing, making it incompatible with the lottery tee time selection process. A 2-hour block of prime tee time should be reserved for lottery users to give Sun City golfers a fair chance of getting an acceptable tee time. There's no reason that these groups shouldn't have to play at less than prime tee times occasionally. Sun City lottery users are being treated by board members and management responsible for this policy and its administration like second-class citizens. I hope you'll give my comments consideration and modify board policies to give us a fair and equal chance. In the spirit of exchange, I'd like to hear a little bit from the board on this issue.
On the issue of...
Or the director of golf.
Director Collins.
Thank you. The management came up with their plan for March, and I strongly urge every golfer that golfs to keep track in March if you are not allowed to get a tee time. The date, the time, keep it so that April 1st, you can come back to us first week and tell us how good the plan worked. Because there's a lot of skepticism out there, and the only way that we'll know for sure is if the residents come back and tell us. So please take it seriously and keep track in March.
You know, like I said, it's a temporary solution. You know, split sheets are going to come back, and then the problem is going to continue.
I kind of agree with you, but we need to let management give their best try to fix this. And if it doesn't work, then we go back and we do something different. But please keep track in March.
All right, thank you.
I might also add that the Golf Advisory Committee currently has this as one of their items. And they'll be meeting again, I believe, on Thursday the 16th at 8:30 a.m.
Hello there, Jim Kepler, 127409 is my number. I came here to speak about something different, but after listening to the comments, I had to change exactly what I was going to say. First, this is concerning the Mountain View project. I was one of the 12 volunteers who were on the advisory committee for Mountain View, and I think people who weren't on that committee maybe misunderstand what our recommendations were. Part of it was to find a solution to the Performing Arts Theater, and that was to have a graduated floor, permanent seating theater, and we did that. The thing that most people don't understand is when you tear down the building that's there now for that theater, that is the second largest flat floor space in Sun City after this space right here. When we tear that down, we lose that flat floor space. What became known as the gymnasium really was not designed to make 30 people happy playing basketball. It was designed to partially replace that flat floor facility, which many clubs have used. I belong to the car club. We've used that in the past for meetings. I belong to the Next Gen Club. We've had dances there. We've had other activities there. So the idea of that gym really was a multi-purpose flat floor facility that would have a retractable basketball hoop. You could do lots of other things there. And if we don't replace this project with another flat floor facility, you are going to end up with even less space than you have now for meetings and clubs that want to do things there. So the point was, again, not to make 30 basketball people happy. As you know, if you live here all summer long, there's very few things we can do indoors except for walk and do exercise. And that was designed to have the ability to do different projects in there. And one of the board members suggested, well, they would be for this if the facility would have the ability to put lighting on the floors for various games and sports. that's not feasible unless you put a special type flooring in with the lighting in it. If you look on Google, you will see a high school-sized gymnasium footprint, and they use different colored lines for the different sports. They'll have black lines, blue lines, white lines. Could be for volleyball, could be for basketball, it could be for anything. So let me just remind people, we don't need to make this all about basketball. It was really replacing a facility that is going to get torn down. Thank you.
Mr. Kepler? Mr. Kepler? Will you please? You were on that committee?
Yes.
Did the committee recommend that those pickleball courts be removed?
No, we did not, and I was as surprised as anybody else when I went to the meeting, and it was taken out, and I asked Jan Eck at the time, who was the president or director, whatever, and she said, well, we had some complaints it was too noisy. And I went, I live at Mountain View, and my wife and I use that gym probably 4 days a week, and we use that pool. Yeah, I know that there's a little doink, doink, doink going on, but it's not so terrible that I thought you had to throw the whole thing out without even looking at it. So, no.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Kepler? I just wanted to ask one quick question. Mr. Kepler?
Oh, sorry. Yes.
I'm over here.
Okay.
When you put your recommendation in, did you mention that we would be going, that you saw the importance of having, as you call it, a flat floor facility? Did you put that anywhere in your report?
I didn't write the report. I was just one member of that committee. There was 12 of us from various different groups, and we had 2 board members on that as well. We all felt it was necessary to replace what we have with something that could work similar to what it's being used for now.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good morning. Lisa Bregelman, rec number 115988. First of all, I am very disappointed in Mr. Dutooth for not keeping his meeting that we set up for January 23rd, or after the January 23rd Gulf Advisory meeting, in which I was cut off at when it came to guest comments. I was then told by Gulf Advisory Chair Kat Fimmel that Mr. Dutooth offered to graciously meet with me to discuss my concerns and my questions at a later time. By email, a meeting was set for January 30th at 9 a.m., and Mr. Dutooth did not show. I did not get an email or a phone to reschedule. Instead, he asked Chris to meet with us. This was not the point. My point was to meet with Mr. Dutooth. When it comes to booking tea times, the email sent out on the trial sheet is still not going to fix the problems of these 24 groups that can book out 30 days in advance and pay an additional $2 per tea time. RCSC is penalizing anyone who does not have groups of 24 or more by allowing this to continue to happen. Everyone needs to be on the same playing field regardless, and outside players should only be allowed to book in the afternoons. Your residents of Sun City should come first, then everyone after them. I pay my membership just like anyone else. You have my money up front. I am a resident, and I cannot get tea times till the afternoon because I, again, am not in one of those groups. I'm being penalized, and to me, this is something definitely wrong with this picture. I am usually in a group of 5 to 10 at the most. When Mr. Cook stated in a previous board meeting that the outside play is what makes golf course money, I was furious. If it wasn't for your Sun City residents buying memberships, where would these golf courses be? As it seems, RCSC is only concerned about golf revenue. What about all these other ones? Lawn bowling, pickleball, mini golf. Do any of them pay memberships or pay every time a fee they play? I can go out to golf now, 3 days out. I can book a morning tea time, but when I go out on the web portal 5 days out, these tea times are not there. I was told to call the pro shop as these tea times are there and available to us, as it is a software issue that is being worked with. So why aren't residents not told this? Why is our golf at courses in Sun City much cheaper than Sun City West, Sun City Grand, Westbrook Village? What is going to happen when all these new homes being built outside of Sun City and these people come to golf? What will RCSC allow for tee times then? It's great to have all these amenities here, but I do more than golf. But when will the time come to allow an even playing field in golf? RCS board says it's wants change. But if you do not allow people to address their questions and concerns at meetings like Golf Advisory and other committees under guest comments, why do you have it on the agenda? And when will we get our answers from the board? Thank you.
Thank you.
I was waiting for all the questions. I'm Jean Emerson, 130679, and I'm real short. I don't know what the percentage is of golfers in Sun City. I'm sure it's pretty high because that's one of the attractions and it's what brought us to Sun City. And I was really excited to see the survey because I thought now we can address some of our concerns. But there was little to nothing about golf on that survey. So I inserted what I could, completely out of context on the survey. I think it would be a really good idea. I can say how I feel, I can say how the people I play with feel, but that's not a response for the general community. I think it's a much better idea to do a survey, and I wouldn't necessarily pay $50,000 for it, but do a survey for golf and say, what are your priorities? I would rather pay more and have the courses in better shape. I would rather pay more and not have as many people. We go out and fill divots, hundreds of divots on just hole 10 once a week. I would, a lot of us would rather set some priorities for the people in Sun City and for the conditions of the courses. We don't see the budget. We just get told we can't have grass here because it's too expensive, but we don't know why. That's it. Survey, thank you.
Thank you.
Norm Dixon, 2429, the only 4-digit member number this morning. Tells you how long I've been here. And I really liked Del Webb when he was putting it up. Okay, I've got a couple items, and then after all of this discussion, by the way, I appreciate being on this side rather than your side. I've been chosen to be here today. As you probably realize, I don't come to many of these meetings, but I've been chosen to be here, so here I am. I'm bringing you today not a complaint, but a request for clearer answers than we have been able to obtain. New lights were installed on the Oakmont Green in 2022. It was necessary to remove the shade structure to complete the lighting project, but apparently the replacement of the shade structure was not in the original project, which would seem a regular, normal, natural process to have been included. Now, we are told it's not in the budget, and it may not be in the budget in the 2024 budget. 2 years without a shade because of what we consider an oversight in the 2022 planning. The water fountain at Oakmont was removed allegedly for transient misuse. I don't know how that happened. Now there's no shade and no fountain at Oakmont. We are in Arizona. The adjacent golf course has a fountain and apparently has not had a transient problem and has never been removed and remains operational, but we can't get one at Oakmont. The carpet on the green at Fairway had a 10-year lifespan. It is now 12 years old. Replacement requests started in 2019, paused because of COVID. New replacement seems in doubt. When installed by the existing board of directors, after much research, it was installed with full knowledge of its use of life and done because of savings over the regular grass green in labor, water, seed, chemicals. So this is not coming as a surprise to anybody. It would seem to me that in the planning process, the money would have been set aside. So when we reach this area, and it is a considerable cost, to grant you that, but had money been aside in that 10-year period, we wouldn't be 2 years over the expected life and deteriorating conditions on the surface. We have tried through many ways to get this resolved, have not had a lot of success. These issues never should have reached this level of the board, but perhaps if the board would ask some questions, then maybe these things could get resolved. Now, in listening to everybody here, something has changed from when I and the dinosaurs were around. In the early 2000s, most of these issues would have been taken care of by committees. Management would have heard, and board directors, because you chair these committees, would have heard what the issues are at the local level, and it would have been resolved. Something's changed. I don't know what, but it certainly is a different atmosphere than we had before. And we had big projects then. We did the Bell project. We took the insurance company to court when the sundial roof collapsed and had them pay for 85% of it. And we happened to put up a $16 million center at Fairway. So they had big projects then, but things seemed to work with a little more organization than what is apparent to the public. But I thank you for your service. I've been there, I've done it, and it is a time-consuming job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Raise that up just a little bit. I'm Julie Woods, 155-153. I'm kind of feel like I'm beating a dead horse at this point, but still going to have my say. The golf, I looked at the calendars, what I was requested to do if I wanted to know what was going on. First of all, who can make sense of that mess? Secondly, this is what I did get out of it, is that it appears that we have 9 in February. We have 9 groups that are playing every week. 1, 2 play 3 times a week, every time. 4 if they happen to be included in the league. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4 that are playing twice a week, 3 if they are in a league. 1 that is definitely non-resident that I can tell for sure, and 3 more that you just don't know. So who's in these groups? Can I join this group? Are they all men? Are they women? Are they non-residents? Is anybody monitoring that? I've been told that there are numbers, but I know several people that have asked you for them, and they've never gotten them. So how do we know? They pay $2. Let me pay $2. I will pay $2 any day of the week if I can get my preferred time. I'm up for that, and I'm pretty sure everybody else is too. And I just can't understand why we think that this is a fair and equitable way to do this. You look at the annual pass. A resident's annual pass is $1,550. We pay $525. That comes to $2,075. A non-resident pass is $2,250. So for $175 a year, they can come in and use our facilities. What's next? And I'm a little disappointed that the board had no questions for anybody else here over golf, no response, nothing. But pickleball came up, and I'm also a member of the pickleball club. Pickleball came up, and you all had questions about that. You added in other things like softball. none of you commented on our concerns, and there's been multiple here today. So none of that has even been brought up. It's just like, okay, keep track of it. Keep track of what? We already know what the problem is. The very least the solution could be, why are they getting prime times? If I come in here with a group of 30 and I say, I want to play at a regulation course, because that's all they're playing, a regulation course at 9 o'clock on Monday, Thursday, and Friday, I get to do that? They don't have to rotate through the executive courses. They don't have to rotate to the afternoons. How nice that must be. And again, please put me in touch with somebody so I can play with those guys. Thank you.
May I make a comment?
Director Fest?
May I make a comment? It seems to me like we have an unresolved issue with golf. And we have a golf advisory committee. And we need, if it takes the entire board to attend the golf advisory committee, to find a solution that works for the members.
And when you go to golf advisory, you can't speak as a member, as a guest. What does that get you? I've been there. I was told, I was cut off and said, Mr. Dututh would have a meeting with me, and he doesn't show up. What does that get?
That's a problem.
Exactly.
Yes.
That's a problem.
I shouldn't be cut off at a
President
meeting if you
Fimmel.
have it on the agenda.
President Fimmel.
Secretary Totten.
Thank you. Julie, you're right. Nobody did speak up about golf. I'm going to tell you, golf is not my strong suit, but I listen and research and observe.
I would also take a moment to say that you were at the Golf Advisory Committee meeting, and you did make comment, and Mr. Duthu did agree to speak with you. That this may be one of the reasons why you're not hearing a lot of comments today, because the Golf Advisory Committee has this item on their agenda, and they agreed to await the March test before making additional comments.
Then why wasn't I given an email to reschedule the meeting?
Director, or President Fimmel.
And I was only offered one question, and then I was cut off.
Mr. Duthu.
I can't speak to the golf advisory report. Again, I apologize for not making the Monday meeting. I was sick at home with an upset stomach, and that was why I texted Chris, because I didn't want to break the meeting completely and feel like if I canceled the meeting, I'd have been accused of canceling the meeting that I had made. But Chris is my right-hand man. He's as well-versed in all these issues as I am, and he's certainly capable of addressing your concerns. If he didn't, I apologize.
I understand that, but the meeting from the Government Advisory was directly with you, and that was our intent. And we could have rescheduled. I would have rescheduled.
I understand, and I apologize for not giving you that option, but I thought it was best to not break the meeting completely.
President Fimmel, may I finish my thought?
Actually, Secretary Totten, again, it's a member exchange, so these folks have waited quite a bit of time to be able to comment.
Madam President.
I appreciate your words, and I do understand what the exchange was set up for. But this is exactly what we need to be doing back and forth. So maybe we need to call another meeting and call it something else. But my feeling, and I'm speaking for myself, is that I welcome these comments, and I would welcome being able to respond back to you.
Madam President.
Director Collins.
I just want to answer one thing. You said that none of the board did anything to care. I just want to say, last June, I made a motion that no non-residents would pick 4 days in advance, and the residents would be 5 days, and no golf carts for non-residents, no package. That was defeated, but that was in June. And the golf came up with a way they were going to make it better and make it work. Well, here we are, and we can see that it didn't work.
Okay,
but
Mr. Collins, my point is that pickleball came up, and almost everyone on the board had something to say about that, had a comment about it, had some back and forth, well past the gentleman's time. We've had how many up here with golf, and there has been no comment from the board until I said, why isn't there comment from the board?
But
So as a golfer and somebody with these concerns, it appears that most of the board has one thing on their mind, and it's not golf.
that's not true.
Director Collins, Director Lenevsky.
President Fimmel, there have been a number of attacks. There have been a number of attacks on the golf courses and the personnel involved in it. I think they should have, I just have one question for them. Over the last year, have you done anything to rectify any of the problems or worked on them?
Yes.
What?
At the recommendation last year, we've limited the access to outside groups to, they used to have the ability to book consecutive weeks. We've taken that away from them. We've raised at the recommendations made at this venue, we've raised the price of the non-resident pass $250. For the first time ever, we have a non-resident cart fee for our daily players. We raised the price to outside play on a general basis only and not internal play. And if the trial in March does not work, you have my assurances that there are no options that are not on the table for resolving the concerns with the small group booking and the access to tee times. So that was just a first step. I tried to take the approach of not completely breaking things, and because golf, from a financial standpoint, did have a successful year. To completely blow it up does not make sense to me. But I understand that there are tweaks that need to be made, and we will continue to tweak.
May I add as well?
Yes.
So when I started here as Director of Finance, when we were at 290 to 296,000 rounds, we were, it was brought up at the board meetings pretty much consecutively that golf does not make enough money to cover its expenses. It was a theme that we heard quite readily. So now that we're at 350,000 rounds, we actually are very close. We're actually covering our operational expenses at 350,000 rounds. So we're trying to find that fine line in trying to make sure that we're covering our expenses, not having to raise the golfers' costs, with trying to make sure that we get as many of our members, the ability to get their tee times. But in a lottery system, if we got rid of all outside play and got rid of groups, we still would have people who did not get their tee times because we only have a finite number of those preferred tee times. So we're always going to be in that position. So we're trying to, as Brian had said, we're trying to take incremental steps to try and find that fine line by doing the things that he had said. So we analyze that, and then if it works, great. If not, then we will look at other ways to try and do that. But we would have no issue with getting rid of outside play. But I think if we did that, we would have to raise rates, and I don't think that that's something that we want to do. So we're always trying to find and get that balance where we can just get as many members, happy as well as keeping us fiscally responsible.
Madam,
Pay their way.
Ms. Woods, please don't speak from the floor, ma'am. Please, if you want to make additional comments, please come back, and we'll hear your additional comments. Ma'am, please go ahead and proceed with your comment.
Janet Curry, 155488. And President Fimmel asked us if we would be agreeable to have the annual meeting in November. And I think maybe this year, or are you thinking of just perhaps this year? We did, which would be fine because I realize that, you're a new board and, things need to get done before you want to have an annual meeting. our ad hoc committee did recommend that we have an annual meeting at the same time every year so people knew when it would be. So I'd say in the long term, that would be a good idea. And we chose sometime in March for two reasons, if you that are on the committee agree. One was so that snowbirds were still here, and the second one was so that the finances from the previous year were completed, so people could make comments about those, or presentations from management or whatever. The one other thing is also from the ad hoc committee, because there was quite a discussion at your January board meeting about whether to have co-chairs for committees or co-chair and vice chair. And the ad hoc committee did discuss this, and Ray, our parliamentarian, I'm sorry, I cannot pronounce her last name, she did advise us that chair and vice chair were appropriate because that's what's recognized in Robert's Rules of Order. And co-chair is not, I guess, mentioned in that. There was even some discussion after that some people preferred the co-chair, and you can do that because you can override Robert's Rules of Order if you want to put it in your bylaws. And so if you prefer the co-chair, which I know some people do, I think then you should commit yourselves to you're going to be truly co-chairs. So not really the co-chair, vice chair, where one person is leading all the meetings, which is really a chair and a vice chair. If you're going to be co-chairs, you should be truly co-chairs and share those responsibilities. I think it might be kind of difficult to do that, but if that's what you choose to do, go for it. And then just one other comment is about golf, because I do know that in around August 1st, or the first part of August, the non-resident pass was increased to $250. And at the time, I heard I heard management, one of the two of you, say that they wanted 6 months of, because there were people that thought that that wasn't enough, and that you wanted 6 months of data to see if that caused non-residents to not purchase non-resident passes. So the end of January would be that 6 months, and with the commitment to using data, I guess, can you tell us what that data has told us?
Yes, actually, we had discussed that as a team last week to look at that data. So we will have that data, and if it shows that it made an immaterial effect on the purchase, we absolutely are looking to raise. Okay. So that data will drive our decision-making.
Okay, so when can we expect that data? Maybe the...
So it will be in this month's management report.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, that November date is just for 2023. As a member of the ad hoc committee, I support having the meeting in March.
My name's Milt Lebsack, 130662. I could make a number of comments about all of these issues, but I'm going to confine my remarks primarily to Mountain View. First of all, let me say I am happy to see the well-intentioned survey and board exchange meetings. I think it's very important. I hope it results in some good decisions. As far as the Mountain View project's concerned, a couple things that were mentioned here today, which I wasn't totally aware of, but the pickleball courts at Mountain View were built in 2014. What I heard this morning was that the original design for the Mountain View project was 2016, 2 years after the pickleball courts were built. And presumably they include demolition of those courts that were only 2 years old. And now we're talking about converting tennis courts at Lakeview, demolishing those, and putting up additional pickleball courts, which may very well be needed. But it's total lunacy to add pickleball courts at the same time that you're removing them. That's just total idiocy. Secondly, as far as the gymnasium is concerned, I know other people have different comments about what a gymnasium consists of. A multi-purpose facility that could be used similarly perhaps to this room. There's probably a need for that, and it could very well be a useful project. Designing it specifically for sports such as basketball and volleyball is not a good idea. It's not done in senior communities virtually any place else in the country, and it would encourage non-resident usage. A well-designed multi-purpose room without specifically trying to encourage something for non-residents is probably a good idea, and I'm well aware that the Mountain View facility is one of the oldest and definitely needs renovation and improvement. I just hope that that those improvements do not include removing pickleball courts and do not include a gymnasium that would encourage non-resident usage. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Fimmel.
Treasurer Vest.
Thank you for those comments. Just one clarification that the Mountain View design did not remove the pickleball courts as originally proposed.
Bill Pearson, 133438. Hope she is. Commander, congratulations on getting back into the fold. One of the premier organizations in all of Sun City is the Posse. Good to have them back with us. Where to begin? Not a numbers guy like David. However, I did take your email to heart, went to my new best friend, the calendar. Threw out in February Monday or Wednesday and Tuesday because men and women's golf, Sunday because it's predominantly mixers and tournaments, and took the 4 remaining days, so 16 days in February that were available to golfers, and I counted up 66 small group bookings. 66 small group bookings in 16 days. And now I find out it's not even on the short courses, the executive courses, it's just the full courses. As I read it and looked at those numbers, dumbfounded, I said, I wonder how many of these small group, 30 or more, that's a small group, right, Brian? Has to be 30 or more. I wonder how many of these small group, 30 or more people actually live in our community. Do you know that?
The small groups have to be booked by residents.
That isn't what I asked. You know that.
No,
How many of them
I don't
are
have the number.
members?
Do not have the numbers with me.
You can
right
get
now.
that in the blink of an eye because it's all computerized.
Yes.
You know who's a member and who's a full play
But as
pass
far-
purchaser. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
You asked me how many of the small group bookings are comprised of members.
Playing.
All of the small group bookings have to be booked by members.
That's immaterial, Brian.
And there are some that do have outside pass holders playing with them, but the groups that I looked at, there's not more than 2 or 3 in any of those
How many
groups
have
at
you
any one
looked at?
time. 5 or 6 over the period of, I went through one whole week of data.
Okay, my point is this, and I've had this argument starting last year when it came up. Full play pass buyers who don't live here have no vested interest or no vested right to cheaper rates than we pay. I'm not going to have the debate about how we got to cheaper rates, but by your numbers, it was $21 and change. Oh, and by the way, that includes getting a cart. Again, immaterial, so they pay their $2, they pay their $21, and then they join a small group and they get to play before you and you and you. That's insanity. Del Webb built Sun City for the members first. Those outside come after us. Always, always, always.
First of all, when the North Course was open, there were public rates clearly published, so I don't think that the Del Webb completely started building golf courses solely for members and without any consideration for outside play, because at that time I think he knew that he needed some auxiliary revenue to help make it go. Over a period of time, I would say that as play increased internally, then outside play certainly did get pushed out because they weren't needed. As play started, you know, I can remember many meetings that you came to where you cited golf statistics about how golf was dying on the vine, and, you know, we should be getting rid of golf courses.
I've never said we should get rid of a golf course. Don't put those words in my mouth.
Okay, if you didn't say that, I apologize. But
Thank you.
But you did say, you did come to plenty of meetings saying that golf was dying at the vine. And part of the reason a lot of these programs were in place was to help offset some of those losses.
So you really want to debate history with me?
No,
I know you don't.
I'm just.
You're tongue in cheek. But let me tell you the story.
I do have.
He built courses to sell homes, and from the day they started doing that, people that lived in Sun City were angry at Del Webb and John Meeker because they were infringing on their rights. In 1975, the trial document agreement was negotiated that said, in this 18 months, you're going to reduce play. If you want us to buy the courses, you're going to reduce play down to 5% outside play. And in 77, in June 1st, when they signed the agreement, that was exactly where they were. But they always paid more. Norm Dixon, who sat here, and the board members I was on with from 12 to 14 never gave away free golf. They just refused to. The problem we have is very simple. Outsiders are coming in here, buying cheap golf, and bumping the people that live here. Yes, there's a problem with diminishing rounds of golf. Sun City West figured it out. Sun City Grand doesn't give away golf. In their documents, they say you can't. Maybe it's time that the board look at Sun City West documents and Sun City Grand's documents. Instead of saying, we're trying to balance it out, just work with us. We told you in June of last year when you proposed the $250 difference increase, it would do nothing. You know what it did? Nothing. Because it didn't work, and now you're saying, let's go to straight sheets. That'll fix it. Here's the problem, guys. Every full play golf pass you sell, you have to honor the agreement for the remainder of the year. Sell a pass today, they're going to be on our courses for the next year, because that's a contract you signed with them. You can't fix it by extending it. You can only fix it by removing it.
I haven't.
Director Lenevsky.
If that's the, I'm sorry.
I've sat here for 2 hours listening to comments, many of them based on issues which I think is absolutely appropriate. But to allow our employees to be attacked personally, which has occurred on at least 2 or 3 occasions today, needs to stop. I'm not saying you, Bill.
Brian?
No, but other people have. And I'm telling you right now that this is the appropriate way to behave. And I'm not saying it aimed at you, Bill, but I certainly will talk to you about it if you want later. The way to behave is to stick to the issues. And I have heard, you can say whatever you want. I've heard the director of golf attacked personally today, and I think it needs to stop. That's all I'm saying.
Mr. Pearson, proceed.
I'm confused now. I did challenge him that he wanted to debate history with me, but that would be a mistake on his part. And he knows that. He and I are good friends. Actually, I like Brian. But my point here is, you're the board. They're the employees. You got a problem in golf that came up last June. Steve tried to fix it, and you said, no, let them deal with it. Guys, we're way past the point of them tweaking it because members can't get their tee times. We're giving them away to non-members. Thank you.
And that's an issue.
Thank you.
Director Fimmel, can I add one last comment?
Yes, Mr.
As far as the non-members go, as a resident, you have the ability to have guests. It would be if I said that the non-resident player couldn't book a tee time themselves, there'd still be nothing to stopping a resident from having them play as a guest. So at that point, it becomes, I have no issue getting rid of outside play, membership passes, or anything if that's the direction the board wishes to go. But there will be financial impacts to that decision. So I have no qualms about having nothing but residents on our golf courses if that's the way the board wishes to go. But
Noted.
okay.
Your comment, sir?
Richard Atwood, 106547. I believe that top 5 reasons why people will move here to Sun City is the weather, age restrictions, golf courses, the recreation centers, and pickleball. Now, we can't do much about the weather. We try and control the age restrictions. But with the venues, golf courses, rec centers, pickleball, the 3 main recreation activities that brings people here should all be subsidized. They should not be just pay for use like they're trying to make the golf course. The golf course needs to be subsidized. That $40 million for a theater, that could probably cover subsidies for 80 years for the golf course. I'm just saying that. So how much do pickleball players pay each time they play to subsidize the pickleball courses, the maintenance and repair? How much do they pay? General manager, you're the bookkeeper, they pay anything?
So if you're asking if they pay a fee every time they play, then the answer is no. They have a,
golf
they have a
courses,
membership pay.
Why should they pay a fee if pickleball players don't?
I understand.
I'm asking you, why?
Why?
Why should golf players pay a fee if pickleball players do not?
Well, because if we don't have, I mean, golf makes up a large portion of our, maintenance expenses and such. We have head count that we have to pay for. I mean, it has to, in other words, otherwise the assessments would have to go up by, what's your revenue, $7 million? So we'd have to find $7 million somewhere. So it would have to be through assessments.
Then why is pickleball subsidized? Why is lawn bowling subsidized? Why are they subsidized?
Everything is subsidized because even golf doesn't cover all of its expenses.
But
so everything is subsidized.
But you complain about it. You're complaining they're not making enough money.
I'm not complaining. I'm not complaining at all. I'm just saying that when I started here, the issue was that golf was not maintaining or able to cover their total expense budget. My position has always been every activity gets subsidized here.
Well, does pickleball cover its expense budget?
No, it doesn't. It's through the assessments. The assessments cover the operational costs.
But the board is making the golf courses.
We're agreeing with each other. Okay. We're agreeing with each other. I'm not disagreeing with you.
But I just want to point it out how hypocritical the board is by making the golf courses break even, but they're not making the pickleball courses or the lawn bowling or probably the bowling alleys or they're going to build a theater. How much are they going to charge people to pay for that $40 million theater? They're going to charge them $100 a night. They're going to, in these other venues, whether it's baseball, basketball, how come they're not charging them? I mean, to me, the board is very hypocritical on what they're talking about on having the golf course break even when they should be go ahead and help support the golf course and get rid of the outside play. Thank you.
The cost on the golf courses, now we have turf reduction coming up on all these courses, which is going to be very expensive. And that is not going to be paid by the golfers playing golf. It's going to come out of all of Sun City's money. So everybody, they do subsidize them. And that cost is going to be astronomical, whether you know it or not, to get these turf reduction done. And that will be bared by every person in the community.
I can see that, but the board is ready to invest $40 million on a theater. How much subsidy? You could, for $500,000 a year, you could subsidize the golf course for 80 years.
So, Mr. Abbott, I think that it's important, and so in the absence of the president, I'm just stepping in briefly here. First of all, to correct the statement, $40 million is not being spent on a performing arts center. That was the total cost for everything that was intended to be at Mountain View. Now, I have a problem with the $40 million as well. I just want to clarify that we're not talking about a $40 million performing arts center. And I do simply just want to add, we're, in terms of subsidization, we're looking at a completely different amount of subsidization when we're talking about golf. So just for the turf reduction between now and 2035, the PIP has $30 million set aside only for turf reduction and water allocation measures for the golf courses. There's no other club, not pickleball, not anything else that even comes close to touching that. So I just feel like it's important for us to put that out there. Thank you for your statement. I understand. Don't want to engage in an argument about that. I just thought it was good to make that.
Golf is the main attraction to bring people here to Sun City, and so it should be.
11% of the people in Sun City play golf. That is true.
Well, but that's what brought them here. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Madam President?
Yes.
Quick comment. If golf was a moneymaker, the RCSC would have never gotten the golf courses from Del Webb. It was going to be a money-making proposition. It didn't work. That's why Mr. Webb gave us the RCSC and its predecessors a financial backing for golf and gave us the golf courses, because it was not going to be a moneymaker. Anyone that believes that golf is a moneymaker or even a break-even, I suggest you really look at some of the numbers involved, because it's not true. And yes, golf is totally subsidized by the rest of the community to a cost a lot more than most people realize.
Susan Bjork, 112-650. First, let me thank you guys for the explanation of the board change. That was very well needed, and wish you well on your personal needs. But I'm sure everybody here appreciates the explanation. I came up here to talk about one thing to clarify from the last meeting that I spoke at. But I do want to mention that I echo the gal that spoke on the survey. If I would have created a survey like that, I would have been fired. And not only that, I want to mention that I went into it when it first came out and realized it was going to take time to go through and thoughtfully answer the questions, which again were somewhat forced. And I knew I didn't have time, so I had a lot going on over the 3 weeks that survey was out. And I will admit, the day that it was the deadline day at 4 o'clock, I said to myself, oh, the survey. And I thought I had missed it because I was thinking it was the 7th, but it was the 6th. I went in, and I could not get in. I was told that I had to fill out a paper copy, and I got conflicting messages in resolving all that, but I went through hoops to make sure that my husband and I could fill that out. And that is unacceptable, because I'm sure that there were others that were not able to fill out. The other thing that I was met with was, well, we gave you 3 weeks. I don't care how much you gave us. I was there on the deadline before the 4 o'clock commitment time to fill that out, and I wasn't able to do it. I had to jump through hoops, miss hours of consulting to get this resolved. So I agree with all that, I echo all that she said. I was really disappointed in the amount of money we spent on that. So that gets me to, I mean, there's a lot of issues here that I could comment, just with common sense on, but I'm not going to do that. What I want to address is, I mentioned last time that I wanted to know what you were doing to save money, And for lack of a better term, I was met with a dissertation of all the great things that have been done. And while I don't disagree with some of them, what I meant to say is, what are you doing to prioritize and make sure that there's wise spending going on? Because up here, we've heard of lawn bowling costing $668,000 to create at Mountain View, and then you're going to tear it out less than 10 years, or later, 9 years? And the same with the pickleball courts. I understand that was probably resurfacing, but it still was a lot of money, $250,000. And I just don't see wise decisions being made with respect to the money, and that's what I came up to say. So I didn't mean to have you bring out and defend your position. I understand there are other things that go on in managing a business, but the big thing is, all we're seeing is just not very good decisions.
President Fennell?
Treasurer Fast.
Would you be in favor of Sun City putting together a 5-year strategic plan like Sun City West does?
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mike Wendell, 145206. My wife told me not to come up, but I'm here anyways. I'm going to try and elevate it a little bit. There's a lot of minutia we get into, things that probably should be discussed in committees or in other places, but they come up here because of the frustration. And I think, in general, committees, I think, are broken. And the gentleman with a 4-digit number indicated committees used to work much better. We don't really publish detailed minutes to see what's really going on in committees, and we're lacking a couple. We lost our communications committee. This is probably my 4th time up here saying bring it back. And I'm talking about an advisory committee, something that talks about the content of the communication, what needs to be communicated to the members and what needs to be communicated from the members, outside of just coming to this meeting and having a bitch list. Because that's kind of what it's becoming. It's good that we have it. People can come, air their things, get some debate going. But frankly, there's a lot more that should happen in committees. And we should educate people on the committees and how they should work. We should fix them, and we should educate people. You got an issue with this, go to the Golf Advisory Committee. Got an issue with lawn bowling, go to the lawn bowling. But those issues have to make it back to the board. They have to be published. They have to be put up so that people know what's being discussed and what's happening, so they can make intelligent comments. If they got to get down into some minutia, go to the committee meeting and put your input in. Be part of a discussion. We don't have any kind of a racket sports committee. We got bowling, we got golf, we got lawn bowling, dedicated to those 3 sports. Golf, for one thing, is very expensive. I don't care what it is. You go out and spend at least $100 on clubs, maybe $1,000 on clubs. You might buy a golf cart, you might not. So golf is far different than racquetball, where I got to go out and I got to buy a racket and some balls, just like tennis or something like that. So maybe we need a racket committee so that you don't rely upon a club president and a club to give you feedback, but a committee that comes in that has board members present that chair it and can bring that feedback back to what needs to be done, just like you do with lawn bowling, golf, and bowling. We need to educate people on what these committees are, not just, oh, go read the bylaws, go to the website, go down, look at the standing committees, read the 4-line maybe paragraph that says this is what the committee does, but truly educate people on them as to what they do and what the purpose is and the function, and get people to go there and air their grievances and to help put together things that can be brought back to the board after you've distilled it down, you've taken all the feedback in, versus trying to do it here. This is trying to boil the ocean, and that's a problem. Everybody comes with, today it's more golf, it's a variety of things. It just goes back and forth. What part of the ocean are we going to boil today? Let's go back and let's make committees work. So that's really what I'd like to come back and propose. I think the board needs to look at committees in general. I think you need to review what they are, and you need to go back. And one thing I think is very necessary, Jean says communications, a communications committee, something that they sit there and they think about what we're trying to communicate both ways and how to do it. Not the details of, oh, you got to implement this software, you got to go do that. But the idea of at a high level, we got to start providing feedback loops, and we got to start providing things, and then publish that information so people know that something's happening, something's being discussed, and not coming to the meeting, getting up and saying, oh, well, that was discussed, that was done, we're trying to do that. And one other comment, Jean asked for a timeline. A monthly status report is not a timeline. A monthly status report is where am I today? And you have in a couple of presentations given some timelines, but I think we need to go back to something more or less. Where are we at with things? Because then people will understand progress is being made or it's been stalled and it's going nowhere. Because that's some of the comments today. It's going nowhere. It's just sitting still. I'm not saying I think it's sitting still, but you're not telling us where it's really at, and we're not able to see progress. And that's very frustrating as members and people out here. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Fimmel?
Yes.
If I could address one point. Sure. Given the dual meaning of racket, I'm not sure we want to have a racket committee.
Well, I just don't want to make it strictly pickleball. I'm thinking, while it's the biggest, you got the tennis folks coming up. Maybe badminton will come back. I have no idea. But a generic name that's for those kind of sports. Call it Racket Sports Club, committee, not racket committee.
Yeah,
I may want to get on a racket committee. So, thank you.
Julie Woods, 155-153. Just a couple of things since I was told to get back in line. I would like to have those numbers about the small groups, and I know that you've been asked for them before. I know Carol has asked you for them multiple times. So I would like to have those numbers of what those small groups look like. How many times in those small groups do they block a time from here to here and some of them don't show up? You should have that information. I would like to have that. Secondly, I know that golf is expensive. Yes, clubs are very expensive. All of that's expensive. I don't think golfers are saying that they shouldn't have to pay to golf. I think that's unrealistic to think that we're going to have free golf. But we definitely should not be having to pay for everybody else's stuff because we have to have outside play to make golf work, because I don't believe that that's true. And if we do have outside golf, why are they getting presents? Why can't they have the times that nobody else wants? I think that we need to restructure that, and I know it's possible. It happens in other communities. And I live on the golf course. The outside golfers, when you see those young men, they're driving their golf carts all over. They go past the bathroom, and they stop at the tee box, step out and pee outside, right outside my door. They have no skin in the game. So they don't really care, and that is happening. So the other thing is that I realize we have to be fiscally responsible in the whole thing, and everybody, I don't care what it is. Maybe you want to knit, maybe you want to play golf, maybe you want to play pickleball. We bought into a community. I bought into a community, not a business. So we have to be fiscally responsible, but not everything just comes down to that dollar. And to say that young people aren't golfing, I can probably say that I'm one of the younger people in this building today. I have other siblings that live here in Sun City. We all golf. That's not really true. There's lots of young people that are golfing. Guess that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jan Curry, 155-488. I have heard, and I'm not terribly affected by either the lottery or small groups, but it has, because I like golf, I do see some interest. And I've heard that it has to be 30 plus to be a small group, but is there a maximum limit, a person? For example, can there be 50 in a small group? Okay, and then they are really using a lot of tee times.
Most of them are in the 30 to 40 range. We have one group that's close to 80. They play on Saturday mornings.
Wow, okay, yeah. Okay, and for me, it's more the carts, because I don't own a cart. I've made that choice. I don't live here full-time. And I do know I asked again this year, and I heard, while I was waiting to pay my green fees, I heard the starter tell somebody on the phone that if I want a cart for my tea time, I can show up 30 minutes ahead, and if there's one available, then I'll have it. If not, then we won't. I can walk, so that's not a big issue for me. But when I have guests that need to ride, and I have some coming up, we will be golfing elsewhere because we can pay, I think it's $65 or something at one of the local country clubs, and we get a tee time and we get a guaranteed cart. And so you are losing some revenue by not having available riding carts for members or for guests too. The other thing I was going to say, and I'll probably end up with a big target on my back, and I respect that you have the votes, I don't, and I've listened to Mountain View. I don't live close to Mountain View, so I don't utilize it all that much. I do like the pool, but I've thought all along, and I know the auditorium theater performing arts center needs to be done. If you could remove that from that footprint, find a centralized location for that, make it your priority number one, have adequate parking, adequate seating, involve the theater, drama, all of the vocal and instrumental groups, you would have room at Mountain View for everything else. A gym, lawn bowling, miniature golf, more pickleball. But if you really have a high class, I don't know how big it should be or anything, but a very nice performing arts center, commit to it being used for 60 years. Thank you.
Thank you.
Did you want to?
President Fimmel?
Yes.
In terms of the Performing Arts Center, would you also include the events and entertainment people so that they would schedule a draft schedule for that facility that you could see and maybe get excited about?
Yes, I missed that, sorry. Okay. Yeah. Anyway, thank you.
Susan Bjork, 112-650. Just one last comment that I've heard throughout this. There's this comment that, well, we will have to raise rates on golf for for members. And what I have not heard from anybody back here is a pushback on that. What I seem to have recognized over the last year and a half that I finally moved to our place is that there's a sense, and I don't want people to get that I'm not compassionate and that I don't have any kind of empathy or want to help people, but this is not a low-income community. That's not what this was designed for. It was designed for second homes. And I know that there are people that are in extenuating circumstances and we want to help them, but at the same time, you can't look at this community from the perspective of, we need to keep costs down, we need to keep costs down, because that's not what this community was developed under. And the other thing is, I've said this before, and I'm sorry if I offend anybody, but I've been coming here since 1998, and the looks of our grounds are pathetic. I would like to see some of that $11 million spent on increasing the looks of our facility. You know, Sun City West does a great job of keeping their grounds up to. If you go down to Phase 1, there's a lot of work that needs to be done to increase the looks of that area. I don't live down there, but I know that those people deserve that. And so that's my point, is let's try to look at this from the lens of, it's not a Scottsdale, but it's not low-income housing. So that is what I'd like you to consider this whole year. I'm not against increasing costs because of that. So that's all I have to say.
Thank you.
Don Shorjay, 27140. I did not intend to speak today. I intended to listen, and I got an earful. But one of the last speakers really caught my ear when she's proposing decoupling the theater once again and moving it, kicking the can down the road once again. We have been over this time and time again. I don't want to bore you with a lot of repetition, but just to reiterate a few things. Long-range planning did their study. They conducted 2 meetings at Mountain View a couple of years ago. They got the input from the people who use Mountain View, and the first meeting, 46 people spoke. 14 of them were in favor of renovating the pool. 18 spoke in terms of the Performing Arts Center. The second meeting, 8 people spoken for the pool, 22 people for the Performing Arts Center, and at both meetings, 6 people spoke in favor of both items. Overwhelmingly, people wanted to renovate the pools and to have a legitimate theater. Keep in mind, we talk about sports complexes and we talk about pickleball, but once you hit where I'm going, where you're your mid-80s, your knees are not going to do it anymore. We've got to have something for our retirees who are living longer where they can still participate in activities in Sun City. The theater and the performing arts are the groups we have that actually give back to the community. Thousands of people are entertained because we don't just go up there and play and then go home and expect the RCSC to pay for our way. We charge admission. Much of that admission is given right back to the RCSC. We have been doing this since 1960, and we have been waiting since 2009. I've been attending these meetings, and it's time to stop this BS of decoupling the theater and moving it somewhere else, which means it'll never get built. I strongly urge that the boards before you, and I urge this board, complete that Mountain View project, leave the theater intact. If you want to start cutting costs, that's going to be the next thing that's going to come up. If you want to cut the costs, visit the architect's original plan, which had the whole thing. You did not touch the lawn bowling. The pickleball was still there. The pool was renovated, which the people themselves wanted, and Sun City got a legitimate theater for all sorts of events. Revisit that plan if you want to see how you can cut costs. That's all I have to say on the theater. I did not intend to speak on golf because I am not a golfer. I never have been. I'm not very good. I tried it once. It didn't work. However, in 2006, I was president of the board. In 2006, we did not have a general manager. And Denny Nichols will remember what we went through. In 2006, I had to act as general manager, and I met weekly, once a week, with each of my directors of golf, of facilities, of the various entities, personnel, and we sat down weekly. One of the meetings I had each week, I think it was on Thursday, was with John Snyder. He was our director of golf. I said early on, John, you're going to have to educate me. What are the problems with golf? Well, the problem with golf is it's never going to be solvent. You can charge an arm and a leg, but golf is very, very expensive. If you stop to think about the cost of sand, when you're going to rebuild a sand trap, you don't just buy sand. It's got to be a special sand. You don't just buy fertilizer. You've got to buy fertilizer that keeps being increased in cost. And some of this stuff comes from overseas. You're not always going to get the fertilizer you wanted. It's going to be difficult. We visited some golf courses, one that I remember in the West Valley, and it was associated with a retirement community. And the golf course was like a carpet, 18-hole golf course. It was beautiful. We met with the director of golf. Their pro shop looked like Marshall Field's men's shop downtown Chicago. It was excellent. And we finally sat down and I said, and what's this going to cost if we were to try to do the same thing? And his budget was $1 million per year for one golf course in 2006. And they were charging admission of their people. Believe me, golf is expensive. Do not think we're going to get away on the cheap. It's going to cost money. If you've raised the attendance from under 300,000 to 350,000, that is an accomplishment in itself. One other thing that was brought up today, proposed projects. Someone said, oh, we've got to have a list of the projects and we should have a 5-year plan. I've got the proposed projects. That's a 10-year plan. It goes out to 2035. Everything, including Mountain View and the golf projects, are on there. I was a little disturbed because golf got a lot of the money, but I understand why. When you gave this presentation, Bill, you said there was $113 million of projects through 2032. And I thought it was an excellent presentation. I think the board of directors just get together with your management, get these things going, get these projects going, and let's stop shuffling the cards around. Let's just do it. Thank you.
Thank you.
President Fimmel. Thank you, Mr. Shorgy. I'd just like to ask you, was the plan, or what you were talking about, was that the PIF budget or was it a master plan?
It was the proposed PIF projects presented, I believe, I cut this out of the Independent newspaper, and it was in 2021, I think December of 2021.
I call that a budget, not a master plan. I might need to be corrected. The other thing, the PIF budget, as past President Lehr used to say, was full of placeholders. I have been told as a board, we can change those placeholders. So I understand your concern about a standalone theater and how it's going to be years and years before it's done. But if we can change those placeholders, perhaps it wouldn't.
If you continually change the placeholders, when this board is done, the next board is going to change them again. My proposal is follow your PIF budget make it your plan. You don't need another 5-year plan. You don't have to study Mountain View again. It's been studied to death. And yes, use this as your plan. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Becky Webster. My number is 144158. I just got a couple comments. I'm going to respond to hers on keeping things picked up. I agree with her. I had a trailer and a golf cart parked on the side of my house. It was just temporary for a week till my friends could haul it home. I got a letter on that. I go down in phase 1, and the person's driveway is piled high with, I'm sorry, junk. The backs of people's houses when we're golfing out there are piled high with stuff. None of these rules are being kept up.
So if I could address that, that's not, anything related to the homes is a SHOA issue. It's
right.
The rec centers does not control homeowners and their properties.
But I thought that was in part of the rules as far as keeping things clean and neat.
It is.
Because you're not even supposed to hang up a clothesline outside.
It's part of the Sun City HOA rules and regulations,
Okay.
not the RCSC rules.
So who upholds those rules? Nobody is upholding them.
SHOA does.
Huh?
SHOA does. Sun City Homeowners Association does.
All right. Okay, then my other question was, as far as our golf, I understand you want to make money on outside golf. So why are we the cheapest all around us? Why aren't we the same as Sun City West or the same as Grand? Why is ours cheaper? I mean, if we want to make money, why shouldn't we make as much as we can? Now, people come here, and I know they're coming here because I live next to the golf carts, and the parking lot is fuller than it's ever been. And they're even hauling in, bringing in their own carts, so they're not even paying for carts. We golfed yesterday. I have family here. We couldn't get a golf cart. There weren't enough golf carts. Which, I mean, my family comes here. That's what they come here. They want to golf. I was down to Sun City to South. Their greens were great. I go up to Willow Creek, which is our golf course. They're terrible. They're so pitted up. People aren't keeping care of them. And I know it's not just the public. I think it's the members too. But they're bad. We have no rangers up there. We haven't had a ranger there for, I think, 2 months. To even keep, my neighbors saw 2 golf people arguing, threatening to hit each other with their golf clubs on one of the holes. And these people aren't golfers, they just witnessed it. Things are just kind of getting bad. Now, Grand, people there, they come here and golf too because it's cheaper. But for me to go there, I can't golf there unless I am with a resident. So why don't we have kind of them same rules?
The outside play only has 3 days access to our tee sheet, so they're only using times that are under, the Golf Now times are only using times that are underutilized, and they're typically in the afternoons. Unless there's a rare occasion where someone cancels in a morning tee time and someone happens to catch it. But
well, I've been here for 5 years. I didn't even know that this lottery existed because I never had to use it. I never had trouble getting tee times, and it was good tee times. It was morning tee times. I have no idea what has changed in the last 2 years, but now I cannot get a tee time. I booked one yesterday 5 days in advance. I wanted like 10:30. The earliest I could get was 11:30.
was that through the lottery process?
No, I went right to the golf course and booked it through them. Because the lottery is not working for me. I've tried it 5 times, and I've only been accepted once. Okay. So the odds for me are not good on the lottery. And then my other thing, when someone had talked about how the public uses our golf carts, the rented ones, I mean, they're driving them across the creeks to get over to the other fairways to hit their balls. And I mean, they're not being easy, they're flying. My understanding is when you use a golf cart, there's supposed to be wide wheels to go out on the fairways. Is this correct?
For the four-wheel carts, yes.
Okay, so the other day I'm out there and there's one of those motorized bikes. He's using this on the golf course.
They're designed for golf course use.
No. These were skinny wheels.
Yeah, they're, if you go to their website, they're designed for, those golf carts there are manufacturers out there that are specifically making two-wheeled carts for golf cart use.
And I've seen them. They're the big wide wheels. Correct?
Those tires actually have a lower footprint than most people standing on a green.
So I could go buy one of those little e-bikes, those electric bikes, and I can use that on the golf course.
As long as it's one of the ones that were designed for golf course use. Now, if somebody's bringing has modified a golf cart or a two-wheeled bike that's not one of the, then that would
Well, I took a picture of it.
That would be an issue, so.
I can show it to you.
I'd have to know the name and model to.
Okay, well, I took a picture of it, so I can show it to you.
Okay.
So, I mean, and then, like I said, people are bringing in their own carts, so we're losing money there. But anyway, that's just some of my comments. Oh, and I had another question. People who are non-residents that buy a full membership for golf, they get a rec card number?
Correct.
Is that true? So do they, with that card, get to use all of our other facilities too?
No.
They don't?
Just golf.
So why do they get a rec card number then?
The way that our POS system is set up, it recognizes people by a number, so they have to have some type of number so we can reference what type of membership they have.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Seeing no further speakers, I'll remind you that the next meeting of the Board of Directors is on February 23rd at the board meeting at 9 a.m. here in Sundial. The next exchange meeting is March 13th at 9 a.m. here in Sundial. There being no further business and...
I have a question.
I'm sorry, I closed the meeting, Director Collins. Thank you. There being no further business and without objection, this meeting will be adjourned. Please remember to turn your cell phones and your electronic devices back on. Thank you.
Thank you.
This is a copyrighted production of the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated and is intended for the sole purpose of informing our Recreation Center members. Any duplication, copying, transmission, broadcast, or use, including electronic and social media, is strictly prohibited without the prior written consent from the Recreation Centers of Sun City Incorporated. Thank you for watching.